Hey everyone, welcome to UA Live. We are coming to you directly from my house in Kennebunkport and Philadelphia. And where are you at today, Matt?
My mother's basement, Kevin.
Your mother's basement.
My mother's basement.
You're waiting for those hot pockets to get done, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Big week, a lot to talk about. I mean, I don't know how we're going to fit into one show, but luckily we have two shows this week. You want to talk about the show coming up Wednesday, Grant?
Yeah, so Wednesday we're having back on Black Guns Matter founder Maj Toure, and he's right now touring the East Coast and I believe part of the Midwest, maybe even all the way out to the West Coast. I'm not, he'll be on to talk about it in detail, but he's going to go over his tour, some of the stuff that he encountered and the experiences that he had there. For those who don't know, Black Guns Matter is a Second Amendment activist group that promotes gun ownership, firearm responsibility, and overall safety and personal responsibility to the Black community. It's a really great really great group. It's based here in Philadelphia, so that'll be Wednesday at 8 p.m.
All right. And we are trying a little new system here. There might be some glitches. I don't think so. I think it's basically the same platform that we were using before, but Google changed. Now they're using YouTube Live. So it's a slightly different platform. So we're kind of testing it out tonight. So if there's any problems, blame Grant. Anyways, obviously the big story of today is this craziness going on in New Jersey with this guy, Ahmed Rahmani. He was actually taken into custody after a gun battle. Now, I haven't actually read the news in the last maybe 4 or 5 hours, so I'm not sure if there's any updates. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but last I heard there was a gun battle. They found him sleeping in the vestibule of a bar or something, and the guy who found him called the cops. The cops showed up, and there was a gun battle. 2 cops got shot, but they took down this Rahmani guy, so he's out of the way. But you know, in terms of what this means for the bigger picture, and that's sort of what I wanted to touch on now, is there's a bit of a battle going on between Trump and Clinton right now over what this means. Does this show that America is weak because of our immigration policy? I mean, this guy Rahmani actually came over to the United States when he was young from Afghanistan. He's a naturalized citizen of the United States, so I think most of his time has been spent here. But he has made several trips over to Afghanistan, and there was some pretty big rumors that he was part of a terror cell. I think some of the people have been walking that back in the hopes that maybe he's not part of a terror cell. But for a while there, it looked like this was going to be one of the first cases of an actual terror cell since 9/11, you know, going out and causing trouble. I don't know if that's the case right now. Like I said, unless you guys know otherwise, I haven't heard the news lately. But what does this mean in terms of the election? It seems like Trump and Hillary are really going at it. And I do know that Hillary came out and said pretty strongly that she wants to have a system in which the people that she's bringing into the country, the refugees, are heavily vetted. Now, I think she said this one other time, but this was the strongest statement she's made, and a lot of people question, is this a policy change on her part? I mean, it's 50 days or so away from the election, if I'm not wrong, and this is bad timing for her. She has been a big proponent of bringing in more refugees. She wants to bring in hundreds of thousands, and Trump says that's not a good idea. Who's right? Is this going to hurt her, or is her statement going to make any difference that it now seems like is in favor of a much stronger vetting system? I'll start with you, Matt.
Well, to that in a second. Right after the shooter was apprehended, Chris Hayes tweeted out, "Thank God he didn't have a gun." I guess completely ignoring that he was taken in a shootout. I mean, I guess his point was at least he didn't commit those terrorist acts with a gun because luckily no one was injured. But that's more with him being really crappy at putting explosives together. If he was Timothy McVeigh, there would be 200 people dead and 600 injured. Or if he was like the 9/11 hijackers, there'd be 3,000 dead. So that's
It's too bad McVeigh didn't use a gun.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you can make the opposite argument in that case. When it comes to refugees, we actually do screen them and vet them extensively, certainly relative to Europe. But if you look at the actual numbers, it's something like $12,000 a year to resettle a refugee in America. If we were to resettle them in the Middle East, it's about $1,000 a year. So it's like we're virtue signaling. We're taking in 10,000 refugees when for the exact same amount of money we could have helped 120,000. And a lot of the problems in Europe, it's a clash of culture. Well, if you resettle them in other areas of the Middle East, you're not going to have that cultural clash. So I think if we're going to pay for resettling refugees, it should be in other Muslim nations.
Do you think? Do you think that Clinton is just not doing the right thing at this point politically to continue to say that Donald Trump is out of touch with American, values in terms of bringing over refugees, that we are a nation of immigrants and so forth? I mean, no matter how you believe on the issue of immigration, don't you think the timing is politically not good for Clinton to be holding her ground here?
And when I think of immigrants, I don't think of refugees. I don't think of people who are forced to come here. I think of people who want to come here and assimilate. Obviously, it's very early in Europe, but we're not seeing any assimilation in the European culture whatsoever in those nations taking them as refugees. In Sweden, it's a bit of a historic example, but it's something like they have the highest rate of rape in the Western world, and if you were to exclude their Muslim population, it would be one of the lowest. So, yeah, there are these cultural differences. I don't think you're going to see the same amount of assimilation, so I don't think it would make sense to even try.
What about Trump's position on this, Grant? Do you think that Trump is going to gain politically from what happened here? I know it's still, the bomb has not yet, cooled down here, but people are already talking politics, and it's already come up a lot. And certainly Clinton has hit back at Trump, and Trump has hit at Clinton already. Do you think this is the actual wisdom here on this is that Trump's going to benefit from this, in that he is anti-immigrant, and this family came over from Afghanistan? There's, I guess, 5 or 6 of them, all in the same family, related to Rahmani. And I don't know if they're all involved or just him right now. It seems like the police are only going after him. But still, the bigger point is, every time we have something like this happen, there's some sort of a connection to an immigrant, either now or a first generation or a second generation person who's come over from one of these places in the Middle East. Is Trump going to benefit from this? I mean, to just put it bluntly.
Yeah, I think he is. I think every time that there's been any kind of Islamic terror attack in the United States or towards a Western country, Trump has benefited from it. It happened with the attacks in France and Orlando. So his polling numbers increased right after. People say I think his rhetoric is inflammatory. I don't think he's necessarily wrong in certain ways. I think it's a bad idea to open our arms to every single person who's bleeding their heart out. But that's what we've done for the last, like you said, first, second generation of people. This kid grew up in the United States, basically, and became a radicalized terrorist. I think when you're at war, we're at war with radical Islam right now, whether we like to admit it or not. And I think when you're at war with people, that an enemy can be anywhere. And why would you want to bring that in your home country when you know who they are?
Do you think we're at war with radical Islam?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Whether we ourselves as a nation have declared war on it, no. We've gone to war against radical Islamic groups, and we should continue to go to war against them. But they've declared war on us, and I don't think that they're going to not. They're just going to. I don't think they're going to stop one day. You know what I mean? So yeah, I do think we're at war with them. Whether we want to admit it is a whole other issue.
So what you're saying is that you are a statist.
Yeah.
And
I recognize American sovereignty. I'm a sadist.
Right.
One of the talking points I hear is you can't bomb an ideology. I'm pretty sure bombing got rid of Nazism.
Yeah.
Slavery. I mean, the list goes on, but I don't know. It's just I keep seeing that comment pop up.
Yeah, that's I haven't seen that, but it's just first glance, that's ridiculously stupid.
Yeah.
Of course, that's exactly what you go to war with. Is you don't. When we went to war with Germany, we weren't really going to war with the German people, because right after the war, we helped rebuild Germany, and now they're one of our closest allies. And same with Japan. It was with the rulers and the ideology that guided them. That's ridiculous. And I mean, some of the things that are being said, it's just like autism central out there right now. People are coming out and just saying the absolute stupidest things to try to choose sides. And it's just silly season. And this has to do, of course, with the election, but it also has to do with, the future of America. And what Hillary and Obama said, actually, I think it was Hillary's campaign manager. I have to check on that. But just today was that this battle is a war of it's not so much a war on Islam or radical Islam. It's a battle of narratives. Did you guys hear this?
I think I heard.
Yeah, she said it's a battle of narratives. And if you really want to, or her campaign manager said that, if you really want to come across sounding weak, call this a battle of narratives. Because what the other side believes is that this is a battle to kill the enemy. And she's saying it's just a battle of narratives, which is absolutely, I mean, it almost shows the same level of disregard for the danger that Obama has showed for 8 years. And, I'm not going to say he's been wrong on everything he's done, but I certainly think, at least when it comes to how he's approached this war in terms of, the talking points and so forth, he comes across as just completely wrong on this issue, as someone who's taking it lightly. Even today, the first time he's spoken about the bombing was today, and he came out in his tone. I don't know if you guys saw the news conference. The tone was almost dismissive. It was almost just like, I want to just get back to, arguing about inequality, but I have to make a news conference about this. And it was just a dismissive tone.
Whenever there's a school shooting, he's either crying or saying we're going to demand action now. Then if it's a terrorist attack, he's like, all right, it happens.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it just seems like thank God for his sake, he's not running for re-election, because I just don't think this whole issue is helping him in any way. But
he is with a vagina.
That is true. I mean, Hillary's sort of running for the third Obama term, and I agree with you, Grant. I think this is going to help Trump, not necessarily for any real good reason, other than the fact that he's saying things. He's saying things that are stronger than she's saying.
And if you look at Clinton's campaign and her rhetoric, she's really been anchored down and hunkered down on the same positions, the same responses to every single question. I mean, she doesn't give press conferences. Everything from her is just robotic. And if you press her on this, she's just going to keep saying, like you said, American values, accepting refugees. Let's bring our troops home, and sort of getting this strumming that emotional chord. And then all these terrorist attacks are happening around us, and Trump is saying, we're at war, let's go to war. Mm-hmm. And I think that people have reached a point where they're starting to realize that it's not that the politically correct way to go about foreign policy is dangerous, because you end up in these sort of predicaments where you're not willing to face a problem head on. You're sidestepping things because you want to get reelected, or you want to remain in the favor of people. And war is a very politically sensitive issue. I mean, that's why we pulled out of Iraq the way we did so early, I think, is because strictly outside pressure from the public. And when you allow the public and politics to govern the state of war and how you fight your war, you're not going to have an effective strategy, because you're trying to please everyone, and no one wants to fight the war because it's brutal. No one wants to see that, but it's an unfortunate necessity when we have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Matt, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, when Bush left office, the Taliban was 75% smaller than when 9/11 happened. Today, the Taliban is bigger than before 9/11. Then we have ISIS in addition to that. So clearly, us pulling out did have some very severe consequences.
Right, yeah. but it was arguably not a strategic or a tactical maneuver. It was a political maneuver.
Yeah,
I don't see how we benefit from leaving Afghanistan with the sunk costs that we have into it, with the just general interest of democracy in the world. It was strictly political.
Yeah, and actually, I did a post I think it was yesterday, just showing a graph that of how terror deaths by terror have changed over the years. And I believe the numbers came from the State Department. They started keeping worldwide terror death numbers. They started keeping it in 2004, I believe. And you could really see that American policy in the Middle East specifically has dramatically affected the scope of violence in the world in terms of what we consider terrorism and terror deaths. In that right when we invaded Iraq, terror was at, it wasn't that high. We invade Iraq, obviously all hell breaks loose, and you can see the chart go straight up for a while. And then there was Bush's 2007 troop surge. And at that point, it started going down for several years. And then the turning point was two things. One was the Arab Spring, which I believe led to a lot of violence in Syria. And the other was the pullout of American troops from Iraq. And it was almost the day American troops finally left Iraq. You can see the chart shift into a totally different gear that even didn't exist during the famous insurrection of the Iraq years. We've basically, the United States, and in doing what you said, Grant, and making a political move to leave Iraq, we're reaping what we sow. I mean, we are seeing a worldwide level of terror that's almost directly related to, number one, the decision to invade Iraq in the first place, and then number two, the decision to abandon what had been a successful sort of fallback strategy of this troop surge, which was working. And so when we got out of Iraq, I mean, we are right now in the midst of World War III in terms of terror. It's at the highest levels it has ever been. And you know, I'm old. I remember the 70s. There were some bad years for terror around the world, and we are far exceeding that right now. Let's see, what else did I have on this issue? Oh, I do have another. I also did a post about this guy, Romani. Apparently in 2011, he sued the police, claiming that they were unfairly targeting him because he is a Muslim, and essentially saying that they are profiling him, and they were targeting his restaurant and his family's restaurant, and they were applying selective justice because of his religion and because of a perceived prejudice. And then 5 years later, he bombs New York and New Jersey. I mean, you can't, there's nothing more ironic. Have you guys heard that? And what do you think this says about this culture of suing? Today. Yeah, what do you think it says?
It's amazing you can be a terrorist and a victim in this country at the same time.
Yeah. You know what the funny thing is? I got a lot of pushback on that post. A lot of people saying, because there's, you know, especially in the libertarian community, there's a big resentment against police and against authority. So it was almost like, you know, here's this terrorist who came out and bombed the living hell out of, you know, a couple communities, is now being sort of defended for saying that he was persecuted for being Muslim. I mean, and he wasn't, by the way. The lawsuit got thrown out in court.
Yeah.
But, I mean, have you ever been persecuted, Grant, for being ugly? I mean, at what point?
All the time.
Yeah.
You know, girls spit in my face, throw drinks at me. No, I'm very oppressed.
The circumstance of the lawsuit was, like, they passed an ordinance where all businesses had to close by 10 o'clock, and they were previously a 24-hour restaurant. But obviously it applied to all businesses, and they weren't obeying the law, so it got enforced, and they were claiming discrimination when the law got enforced.
That's a new thing. And when
by the way, I would agree with
when you enforce laws on everyone, and some people are adversely affected by them, it can only mean discrimination.
No, and I'm sure a libertarian would say, well, you know, it's stupid to have a law that you can't have a business open past 10 o'clock, which I'd agree, but it's not like he was being discriminated. He wasn't being singled out.
No. Well, he says he was being singled out, and that's kind of the point of his lawsuit. And then some of the pushback I got, Grant, was that he was not only being singled out, but that it was the type of law that it should not be applied, and that because he was Muslim and that he was being singled out, that he thinks he's being singled out by police, that this entire situation with the bombs could just be blowback. You know what I mean? This could be, it's our fault for telling him to shut down. No, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Very serious people.
I want to go blow up the police station. I know. I get it.
I mean, I got a parking ticket, so I'm going to go cut someone's head off or something,
Yeah.
you know?
Now, you know what? I think it's even from a different perspective. If it comes out that he isn't indeed part of a larger cell that is in the United States or trying to enter the United States or whatever, and that he sued police for this and they backed off because of it, arguably, could this not have been prevented? Or could we have exposed at the time the entire length of the cell? So I think that does call into question the validity of quote unquote police discrimination. Is it useful sometimes? I think so. Now there are certain lines that I think are very clear in the sand, but if they were going on the fact that he's Muslim and goes to a mosque that's known for radicalization, and they were just keeping tabs on him, I don't think that's discrimination. I mean, that's what happens.
It's not racial profiling. It's a description of the suspect.
Right.
Well, but then Trump came out and actually used the word profiling today. And in a television telephone interview, I believe, he said that he's in favor of profiling of the type that Israel uses in terms of when when their security is in the Israeli airports, they're looking for a certain profile and people that fit that profile. And Trump's point is that why aren't we doing that here? Is it because we're too politically correct? Maddie, do you think that it's politically correct to profile? I mean, it's just a politically correct nonsense that we should be profiling, or is there something to it? I mean, is this? Let me just tell a quick story. I was born and raised in a town, Avon, Connecticut, that had a big national controversy when I was, I think, in high school, where the police had given out instructions to pull over black people driving through Avon because there was what was happening was they were coming from the north end of Hartford, where there was a huge gang at the time, a huge gang and drug problem. And they were going out through Avon to an area where there was a lot of drug trade. And they were looking, because Avon didn't have a lot of black people, they said, all right, look for car loads of young black people driving on this particular road because that's the way to get to the area where all this drug crime has been occurring. And when the media found out about it, it was national news. I mean, that's the type of profiling I think that Hillary Clinton and her side are going to say Donald Trump wants to engage in when it comes to, okay, let's go after mosques. Let's look after, carloads of young, whatever. That's what she's saying that Donald Trump wants to engage in. But do you think that's what he wants to do, Maddie? Not understanding that you don't really know what's going on in Trump's head, and thank God for that. But do you think that's the type of profiling he's talking about, or is this more of an Israeli airport security type of situation?
I mean, I think one of the improvements you can make is, I mean, the DHS has been saying it forever. If you see something, say something. And I mean, I think that's a pretty reasonable form of what's the word I'm looking for?
Profiling.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I mean, if you remember with the San Bernardino killers, some of their neighbors were suspicious and didn't report it because they didn't want to be deemed Islamophobic. In Rotherham in England, there was something like 1,400 girls raped by a group of Muslim rape gangs. It was completely covered up because people didn't want to be seen as racist for reporting on it. So I think that kind of profiling would work. You at least have reasonable suspicion. You're not just pulling someone off the street and then going from there.
So you're saying the type of profiling that would be, if you see something, say something, it leaves it up to the mind of the citizen to determine if they want to say, okay, there's a guy next door, he's Islamic, and he just ordered 30,000 pressure cookers, I'm going to say something. Obviously, there's a certain element of intelligence that has to go into your thought process to say that is suspicious versus, my neighbor is Islamic, and I think he's going to do something with no evidence whatsoever. So you're basically saying they're pushing the profiling duty onto the backs of the U.S. citizens so that politically they don't have to do it as a law enforcement community. Is that what see something, say something says to you?
No, I'm saying that's probably the most efficient form of profiling. You have 300 million Americans. They're going to be able to see a lot more than police are. I mean, there's a lot of things police have to do. They can't just devote all their time towards profiling Muslims and trying to figure out which ones are bad, obviously.
But, I think see something, say something has been working, Grant, if you take into account the fact that you had this guy who was just, I think they announced his name at 8 o'clock this morning or something. And he was already, the person who turned him in saw him on CNN. That's how he recognized the guy, was he saw him on CNN this morning, recognized the guy that was sleeping in the vestibule of this bar, called police, and that's how they found him. I mean, see something, say something. Is it? I think probably Matt's right. I think this is a strategy that politically could work.
I think it's very effective because, for one, you have more people looking for one person. But in this case where this guy got caught, it's from the CNN picture. That's not really profiling, in my opinion, in the sense that you're not going after a demographic. You have a picture of who you're looking for. Okay, that's him. Boom. Now, if they were like, we're looking for an Islamic man between the ages of 25 and 40, and he's tall and has a beard, they might come looking for me first, but they'll that is a little bit more of a profiling in that sense of it, and I see nothing wrong with that. If he's Islamic, go around and ask people who are Islamic.
Are you worried about being profiled yourself, given your appearance?
It happens already. The white hegemony finds me all the time, and they club me over the head with their nationalist lunacy and tell me I'm a terrorist. Terrible. That's why I had to start wearing this hat.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you are starting to look a little bit Middle Eastern there. I
know. I'm trying to stay out of the sun, not get as tan,
All right, we're going down a path here. I got to change directions a little bit. I think you've totally, what you just said means we can't actually air this show ever. But
that last episode too.
Yeah, that's right. We had some trouble with the last episode. I had a good topic here. I noticed in the other terror attack, the one out in, what was it, Minnesota, St. Cloud or something, the guy who was stabbing, he stabbed 9 people in a mall, and he was stopped by a off-duty policeman with a gun, and I guess the guy's named Jason Falconer. They've seen. There's been video of him. I haven't seen it, but I guess there's video of him taking this crazed guy down. And I guess he just followed protocol perfectly, announced that he was an off-duty policeman, warned the guy to stop. The guy lunged at him. He shot him. The guy went down. He got back up, the guy, after being shot. He was shot again, got back up again, was shot a third time. And people are saying, this is exactly the type of heroism that needs to happen. If something like this happens, it's going to take a while for the authorities to get there. But then there comes this argument, and this is my point. This online argument over whether or not this represented a citizen with a gun stopping a crime, or was it because he was a trained law enforcement a police. I guess he was a part-time policeman, but he
was an ex-cop.
I would say, yeah, he was an ex-cop, and I mean, obviously he was off. Well, if he's an ex-cop, he's off duty, but he's also teaches a concealed carry course, so he was very much trained with that as well.
So, do you buy into the argument that and I want to get to you on this, Grant, because you are a gun nut and psychotic and so forth. Do you think that this is a case of a citizen with a gun stopping a crime, or is this just a policeman stopping a crime, which I believe the people on the left have been saying, no, this isn't an argument in favor of concealed carry or anything like that. The guy was a trained cop.
Well, I think it's a case of a citizen who happened to be a police officer stopping a terrorist. And in a case where a guy's got a knife and he's running around stabbing people, most people who carry a firearm might not be able to end the situation as diligently as he did and as cleanly as he did, or by procedure the way he did. But I think that most people that I know that carry guns, myself included, are well-versed enough and well-trained enough with it that we could, at the very minimal least, cause enough of a distraction so this terrorist guy would stop focusing on slicing innocent people to death, and more people could get away. That is still a better outcome than this guy just running around without any resistance, knifing people. Now, I mean, I know myself, I'm pretty good with a 9mm. I like to think I could put him down pretty easily. But you never know what can happen in that situation. And just because he was a police officer doesn't mean anything. That cop was just as much in danger as everyone else. Yes, he had a gun. It improves your chances of survival. It doesn't guarantee your chances of survival. So it's not as easy as to say because he's a police officer, he had the skill set and the ability to survive the situation. It certainly helped him, but it's not a guarantee of anything.
You know,
I don't really see it as an argument in the sense of like this case is closed, locked, done with, because there are plenty of situations in which armed citizens have put down, maybe not terrorists, but certainly armed people causing harm.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that the situations in which a terrorist goes on a rampage are kind of rare in America. Obviously, they've become a little bit more common, but still they're rare enough to the point that we don't really see much in the way of resistance from armed citizens. The way we do if, say, somebody walks into a 7-Eleven and tries to rob it, and the owner pulls out a gun and shoots the guy down. That happens quite often. I mean, I've seen numbers, you know, there's not a lot of verified numbers on this, but I've seen numbers that show that the defensive use of firearms far exceeds the offensive use. And of course, it depends on how you define use. Is waving a weapon a defensive use, or do you actually have to shoot someone and take them down? So anyways, but I have definitely seen that there are far, far more uses of weapons for defensive purposes. But Maddie, I don't think it's ever happened in terms of somebody taking down a terrorist. In fact, I believe there was a case in Arizona, if I'm not correct, or maybe Vegas, where a couple, a man and a woman, were trying to kill cops. You guys remember this story? And they went into, I believe it's a Walmart, and they were starting to kill people. And a private citizen with a firearm decided to try to take out one of the terrorists, not knowing that there was actually two terrorists. The other terrorist came up behind that person and shot him dead, the person with the gun. And a lot of people point to that as an example that, you know, people don't have the training that a cop does, and all you're going to really do is get yourself killed if you pull out a gun.
First of all, if there's a terrorist in a public place, the worst thing that could happen has already happened.
Yeah.
I would rather have an incompetent person with a gun there than no one, because when there's no one there, the odds of you dying are pretty close to 100. Even if you have like the most incompetent guy ever with a gun, even if you can reduce that to 90%, I would be happy.
Yeah.
Anything is better than nothing in that case.
And you know what I always tell people, because I get this question a lot, is if you were carrying a gun and something bad were to happen, not only how do you think you would react, but what do you think would be the outcome? And the plain answer is I don't know. For me, it's I'm not going to die huddling in a corner begging you for my life. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. So even if I died shooting at you, or your partner kills me and I kill you, whatever. I don't think that it's right to ask people to force people really to just be sitting ducks.
So I just came across this story that I haven't had a chance to check the actual numbers and make sure it's real, but you know, it comes off of a pretty credible website that that says there's a new study out that I believe the study is from Harvard or one of the Ivy League colleges. Anyways, it looks like a legitimate study, and it says that in America, gun ownership, the actual amount of people, the percentage of people that own weapons, firearms, has been going down for 20 years or so, from a peak of something like 33%, and we're down to 22% or something like that. But that the ownership of firearms has been going up steeply, not in terms of the percent of people that own them, but the actual amount of firearms out there. And the number that leapt out at me and made me think of you, Grant, is that it says gun hoarding. Just 3% of Americans own 50% of all weapons in America. Now, what are you doing with those weapons, Grant? I mean, how many hands do you hold? How many hands do you have that you can, like, need those 30 freaking firearms that you have? What's going on? Why are so many of these weapons in the hands of so few?
Well, I have like, I don't know, 15 guns, maybe 18. And then back home, I have another like 3 or 4.
Are you compensating for something?
So, oh yeah. My ego is a little small, so I had to get like a bunch of guns. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's what
ego.
No, you know what I think it is that it's not for a lot of gun owners and for really the gun world. It's not really like a thing that you do as much as it is like a part of your life, I guess. More of a culture thing than it is like it's not. I wouldn't consider it a hobby really. So people get really into it, and they're willing to spend a lot of money on it, and they're willing to buy a lot of guns. It's like people who collect cars. Why do you need?
Well, then that is the definition of a hobby.
Yeah, but it's not. It's more of like a personal connection to your guns, as weird as that sounds.
That is very weird.
I'm pretty sure some liberals are going to watch this and get a lot of ammo out of that one.
I'm not even liberal, and I think that's weird.
No, but it's I believe that most people are pretty uncomfortable or at least not familiar around firearms. I remember the other night I went out on a date with this girl. Poor girl, right? And I said to her, we started talking, and she saw on my phone as a picture of a gun, and she's like, "Is that a gun?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "What do you have a picture of a gun on your phone?" I'm like, "Oh, I kind of love guns." And I showed her how many I had, and she almost just got up and left. She was like terrified at the thought of me owning this many guns.
Was that the last time you heard from her?
She's from like Northern Maryland or something, where no one does this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's very much a cultural thing of like, I grew up around guns, so I own a lot of guns, and that just I don't really think twice about it. Other people are petrified at just the thought of them. So it's really sort of where you grew up, who raised you, and what you guys did.
Maddie, I just had a personal question.
Yeah.
Because I really haven't been reading your stuff enough, but what is your stance on firearms? I mean, you don't strike me as the gun nut that Grant does.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, are you uncomfortable being friends with Grant after learning that he has, more weapons than, say, your local police department?
I mean, it worries me. What he's overcompensating for worries me. Aside from that, the guns themselves don't scare me.
Right.
When I'm really rich one day, I want a gold-plated assault rifle, but hanging on my wall, I have no interest in owning a gun.
So you're not going out there to the range and everything?
Yeah, I've been there once. I don't know. My girlfriend wants me to start buying guns, but it's really hard in New Jersey. So maybe once I move out of state. But
you want to give her a shout out right now because I heard she's really cool.
She is really cool. Also really hot.
And she has a cup that says "male tears" or something like. No. What was it?
Feminist tears.
Feminist tears. Yeah, male tears would have been the opposite.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I find I have noticed that because I've tried to do a lot of sort of research and sort of a lot of using numbers of gun ownership, and there is an odd situation occurring where the amount of people owning guns in America is going down, but the number of weapons being purchased is going up, and so it's kind of hard to do a study that says, does more guns equal less violence or more violence, because most of those guns are locked up in Grant's basement with, various small children. So
I think looking at concealed carry rates, it makes the most sense, because obviously most crimes are happening outside of the home. So if I have, an AK that I only can keep in my house, it's not going to benefit me if I get in a street fight. But if I have a concealed carry permit, that's what's going to protect me from either someone else with a gun or someone else with a weapon or someone who wants to mug me. So even if I look at concealed carry rates, I suppose.
Grant, my 8-year-old, I shouldn't be admitting this, was playing Grand Theft Auto today.
Good for him.
And at about the time that he shot his 5th cop, he pulled out a bazooka and just went crazy. But do you think that there's a gun culture that is a negative in America? That when you look at a video game like Grand Theft Auto, when you actually look at how violence is portrayed as it's sort of glorified in the movies and definitely in these video games. I mean, I grew up with these games like that, so I don't feel it's a threat to Billy or anything like that. But it is odd watching young kids, pulling out weapons and shooting cops and doing all this stuff. And do you view that as a negative, or is that just fantasy? Or
Well, first of all, if you hang out around people who own guns enough, you'll learn that they're very nice people. Go to a gun range, everyone's really nice to you. Go to a gun store, everyone's really nice to you.
No one wants to get shot.
They're wealth of knowledge, willing to spread it to people who aren't familiar with it and want to own a gun. There are certainly people who get their hands on guns who shouldn't have them and don't know how to use them and end up doing harm with them. But people who make up this quote-unquote gun culture, which does exist, people who make up that group very much shun those who illegally acquire firearms, obviously legally use firearms, because we realize that our bubble is the idea of the law-abiding citizen, right? That as long as you're talking law-abiding gun owners, no one really cares politically. They might not get it, but they don't really care. They're more concerned with people who are going to commit violent acts, which as far as that goes are not people who are within that sort of gun culture. We're obsessed with our guns. You might think it's weird, but whatever, we're doing our own thing. And then on the other end, you have this sort of violent underworld of which I think is mostly made up of street gangs and crime syndicates that, yes, get their hands on guns, sell them internationally, and use them to do very bad things. But is that that's not really part of the gun culture in America? I don't really ever see that anywhere I go.
It's
a lot of places and seen a lot of people with a lot of guns.
Could you argue, though, that gang members are libertarians because they're A, pro-gun, B, they work on the gold standard, C, they glorify wealth, they probably want prostitution legalized, and
they're anti-police.
And they're anti-cops. We got 5.
So, could be. Southside Chicago, libertarian paradise?
I see a viral Matt Palumbo post on this tomorrow morning. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
We just had
winners and losers.
Winners and losers.
Yeah.
You guys have winners and losers this week.
I got winners and losers.
All right, give me what you got.
All right, well, my first winner is, of course, Jason Falconer, who shot the guy at St. Cloud, Minnesota Mall. Good for him. You're one of the good guys, and thank you for being there. And my loser of the week is Hillary Clinton, because her campaign is starting to fall apart, and it is miraculous to watch. The whole Pepe the Frog thing was just ridiculous. The biggest reach I've ever seen, ever. And it was well coordinated between the Southern Poverty Law Center, NBC, and Hillary Clinton. They all released right at the same time, right after her little health incident. And she thinks she's playing a politician's game against Trump, and Trump is marching to the beat of his own drum. And I know that all the polls say that that he's catching up. And at the beginning of the election, everyone said there's no chance he's going to win. I think we're going to see President Donald Trump in November.
You're nuts.
You want to bet on it, Kevin?
Yes, I do. How much do you want to bet? I have not lost a bet on a presidential election since the Garfield administration.
$100, I got Trump.
All right, $100, I got Hillary.
I'll bet you your entire stake in Unbiased America.
Whoa. I want to do 100. I'm not going to go that low.
All right.
All right, you're on.
You're on. Maddie, did you have winners and losers?
Yeah, my winner, it's the homeless guy who found the 3rd bomb from the tri-state area bomber. It proves the Will Orcadellas of the world really can do good. My loser is us for it taking us like 6 days to figure out how Google Hangouts works on this thing. That's my winner and loser.
It did take 6 days.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Well, I don't have a winner and loser this week, so I will say that you guys chose very wisely in all of your picks, especially the homeless guy. But seriously, to be a homeless guy and to find 2 bombs and then go to police and report that is
Pretty
pretty ballsy. You know, I mean, that's something that probably saved a few lives there, and so I agree with that completely. So, anyways, I don't know. Josie's in here, but she's not. No, she doesn't want to talk. She joined us. She says she's a winner. She says she's the winner of the week. We have Josie Wales with us, but she doesn't want to appear and she doesn't want to talk, and that's just really, I'd say that she's the loser of the week for that, basically.
Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. No, she's always a winner in my book. But anyways, thanks to everyone for joining us. We're going to come back again on Wednesday and have Maj Touré. Am I saying that correctly?
Maj Touré, yeah.
Maj Touré.
Connecticut can't say the minority's name.
Okay. Don't get me down that path. But anyways, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you guys in 2 days' time.
See ya.